Hey everyone, my name is Poisonblade and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. So for today's video, I wanted to renovate Persephone's temple in Kayan al-Bashar for quite some time because, let's be honest, the first version was very rushed and was just a basic rectangular Greek temple with nothing to it. And then I also, well, I did not want to build a statue because I did not want to give every god or goddess in Kayan al-Bashar a statue. Because then I would just build a valley of statues. But we are still starting this video by building a statue because I can't be asked to keep my own word, it seems. So with that being said, let's get straight into today's video. So this statue of Persephone was built, I think 2 months ago. It was built in the week of emotional turmoil, I would call it. Because it was the week of the 8-minute stream, I think. And then I had to help out with the plumbing issue we were having that time. And then an hour into that, we got the call that a family member was rushed to the emergency care of the hospital. And there was the emotional fallout from that because we then realized this family member will never be completely the same again. So yeah, it's still a little bit iffy when it comes to that, but let's just put that slightly behind us because it is 2 months ago now, so the situation has kind of normalized now, weirdly. Whenever I'm in sort of emotional turmoil, whether that's positive or negative, because I can be very happy and also be in this state, but my attention span is just nowhere to be found. So this statue, like, I wanted to build a full temple, but I didn't have the intention span to build a full temple. And you will see that come on the channel a little bit for some time, because there's a lot of like small little builds that I built but couldn't build the full build for it. So they were shelved for 2 months, and now I'm slowly getting back to them. And now you will see things that are built 2 months ago, but that I've only recently finished, because yeah, when you're in emotional turmoil, your attention span is kind of shit. So yeah, when it came to Persephone's statue, this was built shortly after I finished the statue for Daji. I think I finished the statue of Daji like the week before all of it sort of happened. But when it came to Persephone's statue, you will see that this was built right after Daji's statue, because it's the first one in Kayan al-Bashar, the first one in one of my projects that I colorized, because the Daji statue for the Valley of the Fox Spirit in Suyanna was the first one I colorized because it would look better when it was colorized. And then I thought like, hey, I can use this for the statues in Kayan al-Bashar as well, because before this, all of the statues that I built for like Hades, Poseidon, there were the sort of the Jinn goddess-like statues in the Hagia Sophia, like the interior that I made for that build, and all of them were marble white. And with Persephone's statue, I just thought like, let's try and make this a colorized statue, because there is the added benefit that I could make you guys see what I think the people in Kayan al-Bashar would look like. Spoiler alert, if you thought that the people in Kayan al-Bashar would be Caucasian or white, you are mistaken, because I mean, I think most people would kind of understand that like Kayan al-Bashar is Arabian inspired, there is Greek inspiration as well, but like when it comes to inspiration for Kayan al-Bashar, it's basically entire Mediterranean, and then Eastern Africa, and then you can go as far east as Iran and as far north when it comes to like the Caucasus region. Balkans not so much, it's like barely Greece and slightly Roman. Although, yeah, I'm not going to name gods in Kayan al-Bashar by their Roman names, because no, Romans copied a lot of the Greek gods but just placed a different name on top of it. So if you know Greek mythology, you pretty much know Roman mythology as well. There's some like gods that the Romans invented themselves, but there's the main part of their pantheon is Greek, but then with a Roman name. Of course, there are probably some different stories added to them, but anyway, going away from my debacle when it came to Roman gods versus the Greek versions, or well, Greek originals and then the Roman copies. When it comes to Persephone's statue, as I said, I wanted her to kind of look like how I would envision the people in Kayan al-Bashar to look like. And when it comes to clothing, I wanted to give her a big poofy dress, like with like the crinoline and everything, because that's what I think of when I think of the noble women in Kayan al-Bashar. I kind of just envision just like lots of silk being used, just big dresses to really show their wealth, lots of jewelry, although building jewelry on a statue is kind of difficult, so you won't see that too much here. Like, the only thing that I could really, well, there's no gemstones in Planet Zoo. Like, we had those in Planet Coaster and I really want them back, but they are not here yet in Planet Zoo, so I can't really build her any jewelry. But what I could do was make a very ornate big dress. And because Persephone, like, she is, I imagine, the people's goddess in Kayan al-Bashar, so people will sort of make her statues emulate how they themselves look. So the statue of Persephone will look a lot more like the people of Kayan al-Bashar than, let's say, Poseidon or Hades. Although I do want to actually go back to those statues and colorize them, because I just really like to just be able to visually show you guys like, oh, this is how I envision the people in Kayan al-Bashar to look like. Also, yeah, I put her in a sort of corseted upper thing. Yeah, I just liked how it looked. But anyway, so when it came to Persephone's statue, big poofy dress that I sort of wanted to make it look like a flower, because Persephone, goddess of flowers, associated with springtime, but also queen of the underworld, and I'm going to say it right here and now. Persephone and Hades would probably be like the patron god and goddess of Kayan al-Bashar. I mean, Hades, underworld and wealth. Persephone, flowers, springtime and just plants. And queen of the underworld, aka death. Well, this is like a misconception that I see a lot of times. Hades is not the god of death. That's Thanatos. Hades is basically just the king of the underworld, but he's not the god of death. Even though a lot, well, especially the Disney movie, like, Hades is not supposed to be like this sort of satanic figure. He is just a slightly, well, of course, like, there's the story of like him abducting Persephone, but that's also sort of the only story where he plays a major part, I think. Hades is kind of just like a bureaucrat. He doesn't really do much compared to like Poseidon and Zeus. And yes, if you would have to spend the day with a Greek god or goddess, I would say go for Hades, because you're not going to do anything. He's just there administering souls, playing with Cerberus, because from what I heard in the when it comes to Hades and Cerberus, this is all from the overly sarcastic productions. I want to say podcast because I've been listening to their podcast for a lot now. That was grammatically so incorrect, but we're going to roll with it because proper grammar and proper English is not to be found on this channel. Cerberus, if you translate it into modern English, means spotted, according to their videos, which means that Hades has a dog named Spot. That's amazing. Also, when it came to the statue of Persephone, this is now a little bit behind, but in the end I gave her sort of blonde hair to make her, well, her hair to kind of look like the grain that we have in Kayan al-Bashar, because he is associated with the harvest in like the sowing of it, because springtime. And then I gave her a darker skin tone. Yes, I made Persephone black, because together with the hair, the dress, like, I made the dress darker because I did not want her to look friendly. Like, when you make a kind of flower style dress, it can really quickly look friendly, but then I wanted to tap into her like queen of the underworld, so her color when it came to the dress was going to be darker and not as friendly. Just the overall style of the dress, the colors of the dress, the color of the hair, it just making her darker when it comes to skin color, or basically making Persephone black. It just made her look so regal and so majestic compared to if I made her with like an olive skin tone. So I was just like, yes, this just looks perfect. She looks so majestic, she looks so regal with this, because she is the goddess of the, well, she's not the goddess of the underworld, she's the queen of the underworld. Yeah, it just made her look so perfect and just right how I imagined the people in Kayan al-Bashar to look at their goddess, to look at Persephone. And yes, I want to eventually go back to the statues of Hades and Poseidon and colorize them. I do think that Hades and Poseidon, I would actually probably give them like olive skin tones. But anyway, when it comes to her temple, because this was built recently, the statue was 2 months ago, this was built very recently. Well, I finally got back to it, but I have seen a lot of these like ornate roofs with these designs on them, and I wanted to try it myself. But then I also realized I don't have the patience to build ornate designs on rounded roofs. But I tried, and I wanted to, of course, make the goddess, or have the temple reflect the goddess. So I made a rose design on the lower circle, or basically the lower part of the dome, and then I wanted to make a sort of sun design on the upper part. Kind of like she's just ascending from the underworld into Kayan al-Bashar. First attempt of that sun, it looked like an icicle, or just a ice crystal, which, I mean, still works with Persephone with the underworld motif, but I wanted the sun, because it just... You will see this eventually, but I'm covering this temple with flowers. Because, yeah, where Hades in Kayan al-Bashar represents the underworld and just, you know, the dead part, even though he's not god of death, because that's Thanatos. And for some reason, Hades, even though he's a bureaucrat with a bureaucrat. Now I just see Hades in a cat form. Hades is basically just your average normal bureaucrat. Like, if I would have to name Hades a different name, he would be like a Steve or a Bob. Like, thank God that in ancient Greece they had different names, because otherwise, welcome to the underworld, I am Bob. Or Steve. But yeah, Hades is kind of a boring god, but is also the least problematic of all the gods, because I know Hades' story of how he and Persephone got together is problematic. He abducted his, well, wasn't even his wife. There are versions of the story where all of the blame is placed on Zeus, which any story where you can blame Zeus for a thing, I really enjoy, because Zeus is a dick. Same goes actually for Poseidon. Like, Hades, out of the three brothers, like out of like Hades, Poseidon, Zeus, Hades is the least problematic in a way, just because he's a boring bureaucrat. But compared to Zeus and compared to Poseidon, there's a lot less stories about him. That might be a good thing, because like all of the stories involving like Poseidon and Zeus are very problematic. But then when it comes to like Hades and Persephone, yes, Hades abducted Persephone and married her while she was basically kidnapped. And this version of the story, again, this comes from the Overly Sarcastic Productions, because I really love their channel. It's like, it's snarky, it's chaotic, but there is history and mythology in there, so it's like, yes, that I want that. In the version where all of the blame is on Zeus, it's like a sort of weird arranged marriage thing, but Demeter, aka Persephone's mother, and Persephone herself don't know about that, so it's still an abduction, but it does place the blame on Zeus, which I like to blame Zeus for things, because Zeus is a dick. And when you compare Persephone and Hades to the other two gods, with like Poseidon and Amphitrite, which I probably am not pronouncing correctly, but that's the thing with Greek names, I'm probably also not pronouncing Persephone correct. And then Zeus and Hera, all of those stories are problematic. Like, I think Amphitrite, Poseidon's wives, and Hera, they were all, I think, tricked into marriage. Like, I think Zeus transformed himself into a wounded bird and then had Hera take care of him in his bird form, and then somehow skedaddled his way into marriage with Hera. Amphitrite was lured back by a dolphin to Poseidon because he did not want to marry Poseidon. In a way, if you really look at the core of these stories, you really quickly see that ancient Greece didn't value women at all, besides, like, the value you had was being pretty or being a good housewife. Besides that, was not that much. Yeah, you could be, like, basically you could be a housewife, a prostitute, or a priestess. Yeah, let's just say I'm happy that we progressed far from that, but then also it's slightly sad to see how small we have, or how little we have progressed from that, because like the best way still to this day to damage a woman's character is by implying that she sleeps around. I don't want to make too many comments on like social situations, like contemporary social situations or politics and such, because I want to keep this channel free from that as much as possible. But yeah, one day we will be completely equal, and I hope that that will be sooner than later, although we have taken our dear shitty time with it so far. So yeah, anyway, back to the actual temple, because here is actually a small hint towards how there is just this huge source of water in the floating islands in Kayan al-Bashar. Because I actually discovered this in Valhalla, but there are these ice crystals that look actually like crystals. Again, I really want the gems back, because you could make so like beautiful crystals with those, and of course instead use jewelry. But here I have to make do with only this ice crystal that looks a little bit like, you know, how you think a crystal would look like. And then there's mysteriously water coming out of it. And yes, this is supposed to be a crystal, not ice. Sadly, I don't have anything else that looks a little bit shiny, looks a little bit like a crystal, that isn't ice. It's literally only this one piece that I can use for it. But I placed it in floating, what do you call them? Floating things in the temple, just because I would think like Persephone would be heavily tied to all the vegetation in Kayan al-Bashar, so she would be like, she would have these floating baskets, something, plates, they would be there in her temple, and yeah, it just all made sense. But that's going to be it for today's video. I am really glad to be able to show you guys how people in Kayan al-Bashar would kind of look like. So yeah, again, if you thought that the people in Kayan al-Bashar would be like Caucasian or white, you are mistaken. Of course, there are the token people there, because open trade, people will move, so you will find like the odd person from Nosgoros or Voltest, which is like inspired by Scandinavia and Poland and such, in Kayan al-Bashar, but the majority is olive tones going to darker skin tones. Like that's the majority of the people in Kayan al-Bashar, going with the centaurs and the dwarves and the satyrs as well. So yeah, that's it for today's video. I was really happy to be able to renovate Persephone's temple, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, there is the like and subscribe button, there is the notification button, but before that starts to work, I will think that Shoes is a nice guy. So with that being said, I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. Bye bye.